Continuing completed classics. Fulfilling failed franchises. Reinvigorating reviled rehashes. It's the follow-up Showdown! With Paul Getz, Travis McMaster, and Lauren Pacorni. Hello and welcome to the follow-up Showdown 2 Nerds in Quarantine, where we continue to give worthy second chapters to stories that don't have them. I am your host, Paul Getz. I normally have my co-hosts Travis McMaster and Lauren Pacorni here, but they are in the middle of a cross-country move from Los Angeles to Raleigh, North Carolina. I wish them the best. They'll be back in here soon, but as we all know, Paul abides. If this is the first time you're joining us, the way it works is we take a movie that has either no sequel or a sequel that should stay out of Malibu, and each take turns coming up with the best possible continuation. My guests today are a couple of fine and funny fellows, former, I guess I could say coworker, maybe adjacent workers of mine and friends. We've got unemployed actor Tony Vinci. That's how you pronounce your last name, right?
Yeah, baby.
Okay, beautiful.
Well, if we were in the old country, it'd be Vinci. I just want people to know that.
Okay, great. And film enthusiast and self-proclaimed resident sarcastic asshole, Travis Ray. Hey, Travis.
Hello, Paulie.
Good to see you both. Wonderful to have you here to talk about today's film, The Jesus Rolls, the 2020 spin-off sequel to the 1998 cult classic masterpiece, The Big Lebowski. Why don't we start there, fellas? Let's talk a little bit about our feelings on the first one.
Well, for a very long time, I was trying to figure out what my favorite movie was. And that's a very hard question because there's a lot of movies out there. And I simplified it to being like, what movie I could watch over and over again that just makes me happy. And it's The Big Lebowski for me. And I remember seeing it for the first time. I remember like when it came out, and then when I was in college, everyone was like, you got to watch The Big Lebowski. It's so good. It's so good. And I watched it once and I was like, it's fine. Mm-hmm. It's not as good as everyone says it is. Mm-hmm. But then I really fell in love with it. And I probably watch it once or twice a year, I think. Yeah. And I think the greatest thing about this movie is every time I watch it, and I've seen it so many fucking times, every time I watch it, I notice something different. Or something new.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the, it's an onion film. Like every time you watch it, you get a new layer, you get a new thing you didn't notice before. It just reinforces everything you loved about it as all the repeat watches and stuff. Yeah, I mean I'm honestly honored to be here for this episode. I don't even know if I'm worthy of this, Paul. Like this film is a like you said, a masterpiece, and there's a lot to live up to and to unpack here. So
I think it's questionable whether anyone is worthy of following this up. Certainly not John Turturro, but again, we'll get into that.
It's my guy.
All right, well, we'll come back around to that. I have a whole Turturro category I want to get into before we start talking about that movie. But as far as The Big Lebowski goes, this movie slaps every fucking time. It's and once you do always notice something different. Even the things that aren't totally new things, you just start noticing more connections between characters, between plot points, and it's incredible how tight everything is and how well thought out. The first time I saw it, I was 11 years old, and I did not get it. It's weird because my dad had shown me Fargo, and for some reason that one hit for me at 11. So then I rented this, just out of pure excitement for their next movie, for the Coen brothers' next movie. And it just washed over me as a lot of weird imagery. The Autobahn guys with the scissors, that like definitely odd, but it all does make sense and does work. I just don't think an 11-year-old can compute it.
Anyways, if you understood at 11, I didn't get it when I was 20. Then we would have had problems.
It wasn't until I feel like later in high school that it just started getting around. And a buddy of mine was like, "Have you seen this?" I was like, "Yeah, I've seen it. It's weird." And he was like, "It's amazing." and then I started to get it. I have said before on this podcast that Dumb and Dumber is my favorite comedy of all time, but Big Lebowski might take it. It is at very least second, if not tied for first, because it's beyond perfect, really. Every single scene has a flow to it. It's like you're watching a perfectly rehearsed play or something where every single scene is like music.
You know, it has a plot, but the plot is sort of somewhat unnecessary to your experience watching the film, which is, you know, to have such high praise for something that really doesn't matter what necessarily happens ultimately is, you know, a difficult thing to achieve, I think, for sure. And, you know, only the Coen brothers could probably swing something like that.
As far as like the unsung heroes assignment that I gave you guys, I feel like for the Big Lebowski, it's going to be tough because everyone's a hero. Every single scene, every single minor character is at 100% and gives you a completely new thing to laugh at and enjoy. It's unreal.
Yeah, right. I was thinking about that. It's just, and again, a testament to the Coen brothers. They're so good at casting their films, all their movies. You know, every person in that movie serves a purpose, and they're so good at it. Yeah, you know, even the taxi cab driver when he's getting on his cab, like that scene is so good. And that guy is so good.
Yeah. The cops that are questioning him about the car. The creeps. Even little people with no lines. The expression on the face of the man who's throwing the naked woman on the trampoline thing. I mean, and I love the Coen brothers. Huge fan. They do have, you know, at least a handful of other perfect masterworks. But I would say, as far as like a straight 100% comedy, this is on even another level for them. Yeah. Because the one thing I wondered about is how it feels for girls. Is this a guy's movie? Because Maude is a great character, but do they just not connect as much?
In my experience, like my wife doesn't understand it at all. Like I've made her watch it, of course, but she's just like there's funny scenes or there's things that make her laugh, but she doesn't understand like that sort of culty obsession with it, and the fact that, you know, this putting it on this pedestal. She's like, like I guess it's like, you know, kind of weird, esoteric and whatever, but like, it's a great point.
Same with my girlfriend too. She's kind of just like, why do you love this so much? But I think part of it is I do a little bit of a disservice because I'm like, I'm almost like reciting lines or like turning to her. I'm like, this part's gonna be so fucking funny. Watch this. This is so good. Or like when I notice new things about it, right? That things that like I kind of come to revisit, I like laugh so much and I'm like repeating the joke to her. So I think she's kind of like, I would just like to just watch this.
A cult status thing can really get in the way of something. For example, the first time I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show was at a midnight movie. Yeah. And I couldn't enjoy it at all. It was just no one would shut up, you know, and then they're not supposed to. Or it's like, that's what they're there for. But at the same time, I'm like, fuck, I can't, guys, I don't know what's happening. It's not, you know.
Here, God. The first time I watched it, I think I was in high school. I have this weird memory of like I was sick and I went to the video store and I rented it. And I remember reading the back of the DVD or the VHS, whatever it was, I forget at the time, probably VHS. And the back description, knowing what I know about the movie now and feel about the movie now, is so off base. It's like it's so I found it. I'm gonna read it to you guys if you don't mind.
Awesome. Beautiful.
So it goes, the dude, one cool guy, one day comes home to find two thugs have broken in and ruined his favorite carpet. The one that made the room, quote, hang together. First of all, that's not the law.
Incorrect. Yeah.
They did it because they got the same name. He's got the same name as one of the richest men in town, Lebowski. But hey, no problem. He'll get even. At least he'll get someone to pay for the carpet. That's it.
I mean, it is the inciting incident.
Yeah.
But not even close to what the movie's about. It sounds like it's supposed to be a revenge flick. Like, So this is a perfect time. Actually, we'd always do what's normally 2 Travis McMaster minutes to break down the plot of The Big Lebowski and the Jesus Rolls.
Paul Goats, Cliff Notes, that's not how you pronounce my name, although it's spelled like it would be. The O is silent.
Does one of you want to time me, keep me honest, or you trust?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it going here. All
right.
And go.
Dude is a stoner bowler. He is accosted by 2 men who are trying to get money from a different man named with the same name as him, Jeffrey Lebowski. That man is rich. He's married to a trophy wife. She owes money all over town. The dude goes to him at the insistence of his friend Walter, who he bowls with, to try to get compensation for the rug. It kind of works out. After that, the dude gets pulled to be a courier because the trophy wife is then kidnapped. So he has to make the money drop. Walter decides that they should keep the money because they both have decided that she kidnapped herself. This begins sort of a noir story where nobody knows who has the money. There's a mystery of what's going on, but the dude is this passive detective for the whole thing. In the end, it turns out that the Big Lebowski himself also threw out a ringer instead of paying the money because he wanted the wife gone. In the middle of it, his daughter asks the dude to impregnate her, and Donnie, their 3rd bowling team member, dies out of a heart attack when they are attacked by nihilists who are also involved in the plot. Jesus Quintana is John Turturro. He's their bowling rival. Then he gets his own movie, The Jesus Rolls, where he gets out of jail, hooks up with his best friend Petey. They steal a hairdresser's car, then give it back. Then it turns out they know his assistant, so they take her with them for a bunch of sexual escapades. Neither of them can make her come. So they drop her back off, kind of tie her up at the hairdresser's place because she's making a bunch of noise while they're trying to rob the place. Oh, they do a bunch of crimes also. Then they pick up Susan Sarandon, who's a woman getting out of prison. They have a threesome with her. She kills herself. Then they pick up her son. They try to make him part of their sex team. Then he kills... Okay. Well, it's close.
That was pretty good. I got to be honest with you. You did better. Even watching that movie, I really didn't understand what was happening. But now you put it into perspective for me.
The Big Lebowski rundown was like a cool, right on 1 minute, 1 second or so. So that was pretty
cool. Ooh.
I feel like I definitely, I was trying to get through that because I thought it'd be the more complicated.
Yeah.
And I probably left out something important to get to the Jesus Rolls, which is nothing's important.
Yeah. I don't think you left this. You certainly did better than the DVD box. I'll tell you that.
Well, I'm glad everybody can make the comparison now. I'm ready to rock. I'm about to get into my notes, but just want to point out that if anybody hears the clinking of ice, that is my White Russian, which I did. It's the dude's drink. I guess I left that out of the minutes. Writer-director notes on this. Everybody knows the Coen brothers. If not, go on. Yeah. Check it out. I think you'll find a thing or two. In a 2009 interview, Joel Coen stated, "That movie has more of an enduring fascination for other people than it does for us." Everything I know about where this movie came from for them is based on people they know.
Yeah.
The dude is based on a man named Jeff Dowd who got them distribution for Blood Simple and went by the dude. There's so many stories that are exact to the movie that also one of the people that Walter was based on was a private eye that helped the dude, Jeff Dowd, find his stolen car, and in the car was a kid's homework. So that's how deep it goes in terms of these guys just using real life. And yet it still doesn't mean that much to them.
That is crazy. It kind of makes me a little sad. That doesn't mean that much to them,
So John Goodman, Steve Buscemi, and Sam Elliott were the 3 guys that the Coens knew they were writing this for. So they knew they wanted those 3 in those 3 roles. So the dude was the biggest question mark for them until Jeff Bridges came up. Before Jeff Bridges came up, they offered it to Robert Duvall, who passed.
Wow.
Anthony Hopkins passed because he said he didn't want to play an American. And Gene Hackman passed because he was on a break, a retirement from acting at the time.
Their choices.
Very interesting. I mean,
Maybe just
See, I mean, it's 50s then.
dude reads younger.
Right. But it's interesting because those three are some heavy hitters. So it'd just be
hell yeah.
interesting to see them. I bet they could fucking pull it off.
for sure.
You know, it would be very interesting.
It's also interesting that, you know, the Coens wanted them, yet have never used any of them in anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Jeff got in and he's come back with True Grit, and, you know, they're buddies now, you know.
He's in the canon, the Coen canon.
Yeah. Interesting alternate realities to picture.
Do you know if they offered it to him, or did he like have to go in and read?
I don't know if he did have to read, because I know that they had him in mind for years before they made it. Like, sure. They were just waiting for him to be available to make it.
Because, I mean, obviously I don't know Jeff Bridges, but everything I've read about him and every interview I've ever listened to his, I feel like he's this guy.
Yeah.
Like,
although he's more creative.
Sure.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Less lazy. He's a working movie star. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's not an unemployed actor.
I got fun facts on the movie. In an early draft of the script, the dude's source of income was revealed to be that he was the heir to the inventor of the Rubik's Cube. They decided to say never say where he got his money.
It's better ambiguous for sure.
Yeah. I also think it's better to wonder to what degree he's broke. You know, like
right.
You see him write the check for 69 cents. You see how he avoids paying rent by supporting the art of his landlord.
And that guy's great too.
What I love, I mean, and what I felt like I paid attention to this time about that scene is that the dude is very diligently watching. Like he's doing what he said he would do, which is great because like there's, you know, the dude is a good guy, but there's, you know, times you can tell he doesn't care about something or does or whatever. And in that case, he is, you know, like he's giving it his all. He even like is like telling Walter like, shh, you know, I got to pay attention. I can give notes because that's what the guy wants is notes.
Right. And he's stoned. You know, he probably smoked on his way over there, obviously. So he's probably like, this is fucking amazing. Like that dude literally diving onto a mat that is seen on stage. Like that is unbelievable.
Yeah. And okay, so my fun fact about that scene is that actor supposedly did 3 separate 3-hour rehearsals for that day to get it down, to get it right, which, you know, when I thought about it before seeing the scene, I was like, that seems like that actor might just be a strange guy, you know, because it's so silly, but it's so perfectly silly. And even that like light reveal of the mat, when he does that role that is already unimpressive, like it's already a stupid looking role. And then you see that he had to do it on a mat, man, oh man.
It's just so good.
Yeah.
That's what makes him great. It's like, they're so it's so specific.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like if that guy didn't do that, we probably wouldn't be talking about him rolling around on a fucking mat, you know, 30 years later or however long.
It could work. Like it could work in the scene without it, but it's so much richer for it. I
went to Lebowski Fest here in LA a year or two ago. And it was the first time I'd ever done that. And it was at the Wiltern. And that actor was there. And he does a version of that performance.
Wow!
And everyone like was howling, like screaming. You were on stage. And it was phenomenal and outstanding. And yeah. That's
incredible. The only other thing I know that actor from is Men in Black 2, which is unfortunate. Because no one comes out of Men in Black 2 unscathed. But I'm really excited to hear that he gets so much out of what he does in The Big Lebowski because it's so good. Well, he is in my pitch.
Yeah. I think it's to your point, it's like there's no this film I feel like is really the perfect example of like there are no small actors. Like every single actor that's given any minute of screen time, like you said, like took it and like got real serious and like and it's a richer film because of all those decisions. Like the map, that's a decision that he made as an actor, as a creative person, and it enriches the film exponentially for this tiny slice that otherwise would be like my wife would watch it and be like, "This, what the fuck is happening?"
What's this guy doing? He's rolling around.
And we're talking about it like it's fucking Shakespeare, so it's fantastic.
To be honest, who I would say sticks out as maybe not doing that quite as much is Jesus, the Jesus.
Okay.
And I'm not saying John Turturro does a bad job. I love his intro, the dance, the finger on the cold air, the bowling, the licking, like when they bring that character in, they bring him in hard. I have the origin story of how that character came to be and everything, but like my experience watching it the first time is that I remember like I would be in like the movie theater lobby and they had those big cardboard displays for Big Lebowski, and it was like the way they were set up was, as like character profiles. There was the dude, there was Walter, there was Donnie, there was Maud, there was the stranger, the Sam Elliott character, and there was Jesus. Like he's on all the cover art with all of the other characters, and his part is so small. Like even in comparison to Philip Seymour Hoffman or Peter Stormare or the landlord or the other detective, like he's in less of the movie than so many other characters that it's like it was confusing to me why he was bolstered to such a degree.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
I did not have that same experience. I will say this. I will say if they would have kept his second scene out of it, like when he comes back and he's like, "What's this day arrest bullshit?"
Yeah.
Like that's pretty good, I must say.
Yeah, not bad.
Like, I could live without that, but that scene when he comes over to them with the gun, he's like, "You pull a piece on me,
stick it up your ass,
it goes click." Yeah, like that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Okay, and I think from just all of those guys together, even from Trav, I know you love this dude. His that's like Buddy, who's like cleaning the balls with him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's so good.
Me and Liam, we're gonna fuck you up, man.
And like just all five of them there together, and then what John Turturro is giving John Goodman, and I love him because I don't know, I just feel like it was kind of like a rocket ship for me. He kind of just took off, and he, was this larger than life character, and that's like their villain for that world. Yeah. Right?
And one connection that I loved that I hadn't really thought about so much before this is that when they show him in that amazing intro sequence, it's a Spanish version of Hotel California, which connects to the dude saying, "I hate the fucking Eagles" later in the movie. Right. He is the embodiment of everything. I guess my issue, or at least something that strikes me as odd about it, is they do introduce him so well. And to the point that it's like, okay, he's going to be more important than a lot of the characters you're going to meet. And then all you get is that sort of follow-up scene with the, "What's this bullshit?" Which is not a bad scene. It's just like you don't get to see the finals. I mean, and I understand the Coen's reason for not showing us a bowling sequence, but I love it so much. I want to know. I want to know who won. I want to. I would watch a film that was just those characters bowling against each other. You know what I mean? Like I'm there for it. Okay, how the Jesus happened. It was inspired by a performance the Coens saw John Turturro give at a public theater called Mi Puta Vida, in which he played a pederast type character. And so the quote is, "So we thought, let's make Turturro a pederast. It'll be something he can really run with." So they were inspired to put him in the movie. John Turturro, because of this, thought that the part would be a lot bigger. And then he read the script, saw it was small. And then they let him bring in his own ideas. He brought the shining the bowling ball and the dancing after the... So he brought really two of the best moments of the character.
Is this before or after Barton Fink? I can't remember.
After.
Yeah,
so they
have an established relationship with John Turturro.
Correct. He's their buddy.
Right.
And Miller's Crossing, and like, he had earned his keep with them. So it was like, I could see expecting a bigger role.
but it was kind of just a shell of this idea of what the Jesus was, and then they kind of threw it to Turturro to flesh it out.
So after that, Turturro remained fixated on the character. He continuously asked the Coen brothers to put him back in something as Jesus, and when they continued to refuse, he asked for their permission to use the character. And in 2016, I was announced that he was granted.
Can I say something real quick before we get on the Jesus role? I agree with Tony. I think for me, the Jesus is one of my favorite, not one of my favorite characters necessarily, but my favorite scene. Just because I think it's a little bit of what I talked about earlier, of just like, I think it's an example of someone just taking a concept and just like going to the
outfit, everything.
Just like really letting it all on the line. Like that could have felt really flat. I believe that's a real, like, bowling alleys are weird fucking places, and dudes like that exist, you know? Even in that second monologue where he's like, laughable, man. That is hysterical, and I love it to death. It's so perfect of the Coens to utilize that as, again, furthering the story of the more important characters through this other sort of wild card. And and Liam is fantastic. Yeah.
Because I think my bigger issue is with him being all over the marketing. I think that is because I don't have a problem with anything he does in the movie so much as it's just one of the most surprising turns of like, why is this guy all over the packaging and everything? But I think it's because of his look. Right. I think it's because he makes that character so unforgettable in how he looks and acts. And I will say one of my unsung heroes that I wrote down, which does not fit the description of what I asked you guys to do, so forgive me, but is Steve Buscemi's change of expression. From turning around and looking at him, the Jesus kisses at him, and then it's the most subtle but wonderful look of confusion from and Donnie. I feel like I could talk for the whole episode about Donnie, because in general, when it comes to characters that die and sort of die unceremoniously, and like, especially someone like Donnie, who's like, the whole point of Donnie is he's likable. You want him to you want him to get stuff. You want him, like, he's so put down, yet so supportive and wonderful. Like, like every single moment with Donnie is precious. You know, like everything you learn about him, everything Walter says about him at the eulogy, like it makes that character so much more fascinating and important, you know, that he dies. And I remember my friend in college, Joe Cass, telling me that he felt like Donnie is a perfect example of like what makes the Coens brilliant versus like what is the norm, because most readers would tell you to cut Donnie from the script.
This movie is in defiance of any studio note you can imagine. Why it's phenomenal, and why movies like this aren't even made anymore, which is so sad. But it's 100% like scene after scene, character after character. It's like there'd be red lines like, cut this guy, unnecessary, circle, blah blah blah. And I think to your point about Donnie is like, and Donnie also has like a weird, which maybe you'll talk about later, Paul, but like the foreshadowing of his bowling.
It's heartbreaking.
Like he's throwing strikes and, you guys are in the
throwing rocks tonight.
They're in the water tonight.
Like that. And then when he finally throws that last roll before he dies, and it's a spare, obviously, opportunity. And it's like that and his reaction to it is almost like he knows something bad is going to happen, as if that's somehow in his life, DNA or whatever. But
he lingers on it. He like looks after it and like can't let it go.
And you gave me chills, Travis, just talking about that foreshadowing. Like it is upsetting.
Yeah, well, and I love that I remember specifically as an 11-year-old, I remember the Donnie of it hurt my feelings. Because he was the one that I came in because I loved Fargo. So I was like, I love this guy, Steve Buscemi, let's go. And And then when that happened, like as an 11-year-old, I really wasn't able to process, and I was like, oh, like he was so nice, and they're so mean to him, to the unloving eye, because now when I watch it, what I pick up on and what I relish are the moments of you see their real friendship, despite the fact that they do cut him off and they tell him to shut the fuck up. It's like there's these moments. One thing I wrote down that I hadn't noticed before is when the dude storms off, Walter mouths something to Donnie, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I tried to look it up.
Paul, it's so funny you mentioned that, because I've had this debate with one of my good friends, my good friend Dave, and I think what he says is like, what a baby, or something like that, or such a baby.
Yeah.
Like, you're speaking about the dude, like, God, he's throwing a tantrum, like, what a baby. Jesus Christ.
Well, which is hilarious because Walter is the cause of every problem, of course. But separately, like, I just love it because it shows you, and other little moments, it shows you that they have their own connection separate from Walter and the dude. Donnie isn't just on the team because he's good at bowling. They have a past, and that's why it's so impactful when he mentions that he knows he was a surfer at the eulogy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a big moment, but it's very sweet at the end when he's dying and Walter is holding him. Like that is, you can just tell from that, even though it's crazy, like the dialogue's like bizarre, but it's so lovely, and you can tell that there's love there, which is a testament again just to these characters and these guys. Steve Buscemi just ran with, like, that character could have been boring as fuck.
Yeah.
Really too. Yeah. Depending on who they cast.
He's so what I mean? Fucking hilarious.
He's so good. And he's so good. Like, so
what do you need that for, dude?
Made him.
God. And I like every detail about him. They're always drinking beer and he's drinking slice.
Yeah.
Right. Like orange slice. God, it's so good.
And also for the Collins to go from such a hit with Fargo, and Steve Buscemi's like essentially one of your leads, to then put him in a role that is third tier in the scope of the greater film is like, that's such a ballsy thing to do, Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's arguable that he doesn't matter. And then the other side of it is he matters so much.
Right.
Oh, and it's cool that Steve Buscemi was like, yeah, I'll come do this. Like he could have easily been like, what?
Yeah. I mean, he gets to be, every scene that he's in, he gets to be as involved as anybody else. Like, he is as active.
Yeah.
Like, he's not moving the plot along, but he's there having his own, okay, I'm catching up. Like he's so earnestly always trying to understand and be a part of what they're doing.
It's very sweet.
Yes, it is.
It is very sweet. It's a great word for its own. Very sweet. Like, if there was a character note in the script, it would be genuinely sweet.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, I have a kind of a fun fact that the description in the script of the dude is terminally relaxed.
That's good.
Okay, so I don't know where else I'm going to fit this, so I kind of want to do, hopefully going to be a new segment. It's real quick. Calling it Cars with Credits.
Buckle up, buckle in for your favorite new segment. This one right here is called Cars with Credits.
The dude's car, the 1973 Ford Torino.
Yeah.
They used two cars for the course of the movie, two of the same car. One of them was destroyed during the filming. Makes sense, given everything that it's put through. Oh, and it's set on fire, so I guess that's where it was destroyed. The other one used for the movie was destroyed in the filming of an X-Files episode called Salvage. So that car has its own IMDb.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And not too shabby.
You got more credits than I do, Paul.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about the Jesus rolls.
Oh, boy.
21% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
Budget of $4.5 million. Box office return $64,648.
Ooh.
Yeah.
When did this come out? Did this come out before the pandemic, or did it come out like right when it started?
It came out in 2020. So it was announced in 2017,
Yeah.
as coming soon. And it changed titles a few times. It was supposed to be called 100 Minutes with Jesus. Then
I like that. I like that. I like that.
Well, the funny thing is, it's less than 100 minutes. Sign of a bad movie.
Like 94, right?
Yeah. It's not even 90. It's like an hour 25. But then it was going to be called Going Places, which is the title of the French movie it's remade from. And then ultimately they settled on the Jesus Rolls. Okay. Oh, yeah. It's hard to know where to start. I guess maybe just with our feelings.
I think this thing.
This thing. It's a
not even a
perfect
film. It's a thing.
This
It's a
fucking
thing.
thing is incoherent.
Absolutely.
The word I could
100%.
think of for it is it's completely incomprehensible. And the second thing is like it's frustrating because I don't even want it anything to do with The Big Lebowski. I don't want it anywhere near it, within ear, nothing. Like I wrote all these notes as I was going. I was like, I got to stop making notes because they're all just like, what the fuck? That's the note.
Minute 25. What the fuck
What
again?
the fuck?
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know.
I would have to agree with you, Travis. I mean, listen, it's interesting because there's so many good actors in this
It's
thing.
just as stacked.
It's
with
just as
actors.
stacked. Bobby Cannavale, my boy,
Fantastic.
John
man.
Turturro, John Hamm,
Johnny Ham.
Susan Sarandon, like
Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And I found myself watching it and being like, and I will be honest with you, sometimes I was checking my phone because I wasn't that riveted. And then I would look up and they would be somewhere else and doing something else. And I'm like, what the fuck did I miss? I rewound like 15 minutes of it. And then once I got back to where I had missed, I was like, well, I guess I didn't even have to do that because I still have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like, Paul, your 2 minutes synopsis was more, now I kind of understand what's happening
Okay.
with it. It was just very, very, and I think it had been too long since the movie, since The Big Lebowski. I mean, when The Big Lebowski come out, how many years ago?
It's been 22 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was just too long. It was just very, very long.
And let's preface this by, I think we would all agree that we love John Turturro.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
A
Absolutely.
phenomenal talent, a phenomenal actor. I don't understand. I don't know if this was like, studio note bonanza, and it just on the cutting room floor ended up like, well, I guess we'll do this and cut that and do it. And hopefully make fucking something. But holy shit, this thing.
See, my theory, and I haven't seen 1974's Going Places, the inspiration for this film.
I didn't realize it was based on something. I'm totally clueless in that respect.
So it's a novel that was made by a French director into a movie in 1974.
Okay.
It is famous for being a very controversial movie because of its sort of lack of moral compass. My read on the movie was less that it was cut up by studio notes and more that it was as close as you could get to a shot-for-shot remake of a French sexcapade movie from the 70s. But I don't know, without real film or the look of it being in the 70s or it being in French, you know what I mean? Like, and as far as I know, the only difference in any of the story is that the end where they steal the car from the people with the boat. The way the original ends is they take one of those daughters with them and deflower her.
Wow.
And then leave her at the side of the road and then drive off.
What the fuck? Thank God they didn't do that in this. That would have been
very French.
Yeah. Now I didn't. I mean, the whole movie is writing a similar line, to that type of thing. And the way that they end it, just because I didn't get to it in the minute, is that early in the movie they steal John Hamm's car. He shoots Bobby Cannavale in the leg. It hurts his balls.
Bobby leg/ball tag.
Then they made it butt
ricocheted.
later, which was interesting. Yeah. But Bobby Cannavale wants revenge, so they saw his car to, like, they're going to leave the car for him to find again and then make it so that one day the wheel will just break off of the car, the axle.
Yeah.
So then at the end, they steal a car. Turns out to be that same car repainted, and it falls apart in the middle of a tunnel. Nothing happens to them. They survive the crash fine, and then they hitchhike at the side of the road.
That was actually my favorite shot of the movie.
The final
when
shot.
it flips and they're showing the lights. That was my favorite shot of the film.
Reminiscent in a way to the bowling ball shot in Big Lebowski. It's a perspective shot. Yeah.
Right.
I will say I didn't even notice that the car had a different paint job, Paul. To me, the car looked as soon as they got in the car, I was like, oh, that's the car. And I made a note that said they didn't realize that was the car.
He does say something after the crash, like, I remember it being orange.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't he also say the same line in the beginning of the movie before they steal Diane's car? He's like, my dad drove a car like this. And then when he steals the car at the end, he also says, my dad drove a car like this, I believe.
That's not necessarily a problem for me. I do have a problem with the fact that they survived the crash. Because, like, I mean, I don't need them to die. That doesn't necessarily give it the ending that makes it.
Yeah.
But, like, in a certain sense, that's like a cathartic choice to make. And then for it to just be like, oh, it's that car, they crash it, and then they go on, adventure continues. It's just, I mean, like, nothing about it. Like, I was like, well, then what was the point? Especially now knowing that was the changed ending they decided on.
Well, they left open for another sequel. So
right, because everybody's gonna want that. Yeah.
This film, if you want to call it that, it lacks severely that sense of like the whole film. They've been doing these detestable things that, like, how did you not get caught for all these different things, and yet you still got away? Like, you didn't even die, you didn't go to jail. Like, there's no consequence.
None of them. Even if one of them had died.
No, exactly. Yeah, one of them flew out and something happened. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Another thing they're lacking is any other perspective besides their own. Yeah. It's just a mess of having to be with these people who I guess you're supposed to like.
Right.
Like,
because
or be with. Yeah. I mean, I guess, which one of the biggest problems I have is that the one scene that doesn't feel like a 1970s French film that's just not only shot for shot potentially, but specifically line for line. Yeah. Because the way that all of these amazing actors are saying lines is like, these lines don't translate. I could see if I was reading this in a subtitle being like, okay, I accept that. But they don't feel like real people or characters or anything. No. But the one scene that doesn't feel like the rest of that is the very beginning, in which he does is immediately erase everything we know about the Jesus. I mean, we know he bowls, so that's in there. Yeah. Could use a little more of that.
Agreed.
Because 100%.
He doesn't bowl until like 45 minutes into the movie.
And that was the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, it was. It was.
The blowing eye with
Bobby Cannavale got to be charming. I mean, I'm not saying he was. I can't discredit the actors except for maybe John Turturro because he wrote, directed, and starred in it, and it just seemed like, what are you doing? Like him. The biggest. I'm not saying I would have liked the movie anyway, but the biggest mistake in terms of making this movie was him being the Jesus. It's like, play a different character doing this. Why does this have to have anything to do with Big Lebowski? And the first thing they do is they say he's not a pederast, which annoyed the hell out of me. I understand that they're trying to get you on board a little bit more, but it's essentially being like, hey, Coen brothers, can I have this character? And then they immediately go, well, I didn't like the way you wrote the character.
Right.
Here's the new character. He's the guy with the big dick that's irresistible.
Yeah.
Here's
the context.
Maybe the prison system worked and he was reformed.
The closest I could come to seeing this movie's point was an indictment of the prison system. Because what is consistent is he's not reformed.
Right.
Petey's not reformed.
It's out is reformed, yeah.
Yeah. Susan Sarandon, Pete Davidson, none of them are reformed. So it's like...
For me, too, even just right off the bat, like, I felt like I felt like the voice that John Turturro was doing was also off in the beginning. Like there's certain moments where you're like, oh, that sounds like Jesus. But then I would say like 80% of the dialogue that he recites sounds nothing like that character.
And like that's what I'm saying. Like that was 22 years ago that he did this, right? Yeah. I mean, like I can't imagine that he's keeping his Jesus voice.
Sure. Yeah. And polished. His voice has matured and grown.
Right, and changed. Right.
Years older, but still, like you would think he'd watch it back and try to get into more of the rhythm of he's, like the only thing that kept it current is when he's like, whoa, like does those like everything that makes it seem like the character. Otherwise, it's like,
well, and even if he had kept the voice exactly right, that character is so huge. Yeah, I mean, how could you possibly expect that character to translate to this story? I just don't understand the choice of making it, or even the obsession with holding on to the Jesus. If you want to make this movie, the remake of this movie, go ahead. You know what I mean? Probably wouldn't be a big hit, but it's even worse for it. The fact that he's trying to connect it to the other movie.
I will say one of my least favorite things was he said in there a couple times, he referenced from The Big Lebowski sticking a gun up someone's ass and pulling the trigger. And like that, to me, like that's not something you say in normal conversation. I feel like that would be that comes from him just like in the moment talking to these guys at the bowling alley. Like I can't imagine that you would go through life and anytime someone pulls a gun on you or you have a gun and you're sticking up their fucking ass.
Well, and also the fact that, because I feel like from the beginning, this character just can't stay out of trouble. Jesus is back, baby, and look out, he's stealing the car. Where it's like, how was he ever a functional enough person to bowl in a league? Because you're never away from him, so it's not like there's any downtime for him to be doing, normal stuff. Yeah.
And I never got the sense from him as a character in The Big Lebowski that he was like some petty criminal in and out of jail.
Right.
I never thought like he was a pederast. He went to jail for that.
Yeah.
Yes. But I never, like when I started, like, I'm like, this guy's he's just a criminal who just robs everybody.
And one thing he's not is a pederast.
Yeah.
Which is like, just make it a different movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Either make it a French film or make it a true Lebowski sequel and stay true to that world. But you didn't do either one. You were like, well, fuck it. Let's see what happens here.
I mean, I will say I don't know what I would want from a sequel centered on the Jesus, except for him to bowl.
Right.
Specifically against the Dude and Walter, if I could have it. But if I can't, still bowl. Still, that's the premise, please.
It needs to be like a Kingpin level film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it needs to be with the Jesus. Is like he's like Big Earn's rival or something. Like that's the world we need to go with this.
Yeah. And I don't want to beat up on just John Turturro, but his other, I mean, he has others, but like his other, I would say, big writer-director credit is a movie called Fading Gigolo with him and Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that, he's like an aging Don Juan, making money off of the ladies. And it's sort of like...
Apparently John Turturro is slaying a lot of ladies.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, baby.
And why does he need all of us to know? Like, I mean, that's what I read from both of those choices.
Wouldn't you, babe? Come on. The world must know, Paulie. Come on.
But if you're an actor, writer, director, like, come up with a different premise. Like, I don't know. I think it's embarrassing when somebody who's behind the camera and in front of the camera is going, guess who my character is? The ladies, man.
Guess who's got a huge cock?
Yeah.
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 And just to remind you, I don't like children.
Just going back. Starting with the incoherence you mentioned earlier, Travis, the most incoherent shot, and I'm certain that this was taken like directly from the 1970s movie. They're riding bicycles away from farmers.
Oh, God.
They stole the bicycles. Then it cuts to the Jesus cutting open the convertible top of a Volkswagen thing. Yeah. And then once he opens it, he sees that Bobby Cannavale, who was behind him on the bike, way behind him, is inside and says it was open. And that's supposed to be a funny beat of like, oh, he worked so hard to get that top open, which he didn't even do that.
Right.
So like that was the shot that I was like, okay, like if this isn't just lifted from the other movie, I don't understand what this.
And there's no there's no establishing that there's a car that they're looking for. There's no establishing that you can't get into it. You just all of a sudden go from this bike pan shot to this like forced perspective cutting through the roof, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Who am I right now as a camera?
Yeah.
And not to mention, this car looks like it's been sitting there for quite some time.
Yeah, like it's just gonna.
We'll take a gas, baby.
Yeah,
they're good. They're good. Doesn't matter.
They don't even make the thing anymore. I mean, that has.
I know.
Yeah.
And another thing I will mention is like I adore Bobby Cannavale, but man, am I sick of him doing fucking roles that are so terrible. He's in so many bad things, and I don't understand how that's even possible. He's a phenomenal actor, and he's in things where you're just like, what the fuck happened here? But yeah, I just don't
say no to this too. It's like they're all working with their friend. It has to. You know what I mean? Like, why would Susan Sarandon do this, or why would Christopher Walken do it? I feel like it's all part of a
huge waste of Walken. Huge.
I was in for two seconds and then is over.
And John Hamm.
And the movie should have started with Turturro bowling in prison.
Yep.
Being on the
that was what I was most. It was one of the
lovely
points I was most interested in. Was something that happened off screen beforehand.
Oh yeah, the John Hamm thing is such a throwaway. Like it's like, so what did $2 million of this budget go to paying John Hamm? Because it's incoherent. That whole scene is like, okay, so you're like this flamboyant heterosexual hairdresser who's angry and pissed off. Like what?
Right.
What the fuck?
And one of his lines
of him
is literally. I mean, I thought that was a funny detail thrown in the garbage by being in this movie.
It's so frustrating when somebody so talented and so good is pigeonholed in this ridiculous context with nothing to do.
Yeah. In that insane scene with him.
Yes.
One of his lines is, I'm a hairdresser. That's my name there on the building. Where it's like, okay, literally that's everything we already know. Like, why would you say that? I felt it was hard for me to know if that was a lost in translation line or an improv that they were just like, yeah, man, we leave all the improvs in. Do whatever you want. Yeah, it was.
It's like, oh, you're a hairdresser that also will just murder someone if you don't like. That's the consequence.
And does she work for him?
She does work for him, and then also just happens to know Jesus. And I do know that another difference between this and the original is that in the original, they kidnap her.
I read that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too. Now I'm just
which makes more sense.
At first I thought she was a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
And like,
the way he's treating her and talking to her and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, she works with him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still.
Which I guess we really learn when she cuts JB Smooth's hair.
Oh my god.
Which. What another
waste. Was anyone else know she was going to cut her hand? I thought she was going to cut her hands with that whole fucking thing. I was very nervous.
The joke of that scene, if there was a joke, was completely lost because his whole thing was like, look, she got distracted and she cut all my hair off. And then they go, I think it looks good. I totally missed that. And then he goes, oh yeah, I'm sexy. It looks good.
Yeah.
Did you not?
So which character are you?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what's your?
Did you just not look in a mirror before you got upset?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I know you work in a junkyard, but come on, baby.
And not even a mirror. It was a rear view mirror on a fucking car. Which is,
one actor that I thought at least did the absolute most with what he had was Pete Davidson as Susan Sarandon's son, who was a legitimate surprise to me when he killed that guy.
Yeah.
And that was the one turn in the movie that I was like, oh, this is a little bit like Inspired, because that's kind of cool. Like, he's the guy that can make Audrey Tautou come, but they can't keep him because he's dangerous,
Right.
And he was menacing.
He read as a
Susan
sociopath.
Sarandon did well for what she had. She's always,
Yeah.
always great. But that also confused me. Like, then she goes and kills herself right after they have this devil's threesome.
Well, and
then
after seeing the beach and, like, I mean, Love and Life, again.
Right. I also didn't understand who Susan Sarandon was in the context of this film.
She was literally a lady they watched walk out of prison and followed.
Now I have another question.
Yeah.
Did they go to that prison to get a woman that Bobby Cannavale could spend the night with?
That was the...
Did he know someone there?
The setup was John Turturro said, we're going to go to a place with 300 women who are just ready to do it.
Someone's ready to bang when they come out.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then she was, I guess, the first person I saw.
Right. Good timing.
Yeah.
How did he end up in New York? You know what I mean? Like, how did Jesus end up in a New York State penitentiary? Why?
Right?
Yeah. That was one of my biggest questions, Tony, is I was like, where does this take place?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Last I knew, he was like a Southern California, cholo criminal. And somehow now he's in like these farmlands of the East Coast somewhere, rural New York or Connecticut or whatever the fuck it was. And I was like, where are we?
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
Why do we stay here?
Yeah.
Like,
because everything looked like French countryside. It would make more sense to me if they were in a different country. All of the movie would make more sense.
The like so French.
Yeah. So the one fun fact I have about this movie is even though the Jesus is the only character the Coen brothers gave John Turturro permission to use, there is a little bit of a tease. There's an article framed in the warden's office with the headline, "Millionaire Jeffrey Lebowski sponsored the Sing Sing Black Sheep's bowling team."
Really?
Yeah. So there's a little tease,
little Easter egg
in that way. But again, having pointed out the location, the Millionaire Lebowski, so the Big Lebowski.
Okay.
Yeah. Big Lebowski.
Yeah. But
can he be dead by now?
In California.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess we don't even know when this takes place. They don't, I mean,
that's true.
Man, they don't. Well, and also they address the pederast thing with a flashback of him peeing in a urinal, talking to a kid and being innocent. And then the dad comes out and I guess calls the cops and that gets him arrested right then and there. But that was supposed to have happened at least 22 years ago.
Right. In California.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point earlier, Paul, like he's only a pederast because he has a huge dong.
Right.
Well, he's only a pederast because this kid was like,
"That's
whoa,
big." Yeah.
Holy shit. And then the dad's like, "Oh, this has got to be inappropriate because why would my son be so enthralled?"
Why would even if a father thought that, why would you do anything except grab the kid and get out? Like,
yeah, be like, all right, well, he's doing better than dad.
Unless the guy like follows you or something.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe let's give ourselves a break. I real quick wanted to mention a couple other sequels that exist to The Big Lebowski. A fun one, when John Goodman was inducted into the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Jeff Bridges donned the dude's cardigan sweater and delivered his intro speech as the dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you can find that on YouTube. The dude lives a little bit there. So there is a Lebowski bar in Reykjavik, Iceland, that offers multiple variations of the White Russian, and menu options named for the characters, and the interior is bowling themed and adorned with the rug, all over the place. So this place exists just as a tribute to the film.
Nice.
So what's the name? Do you know the name of the bar?
Lebowski Bar.
Should be the dude abides.
Yeah, imbibes. The dude imbibes.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Lebowski Bar. Come on, baby.
I mean, maybe in Iceland that's more clever somehow.
That's
true.
And then finally, and I assume you guys got to know about this, the Stella Artois commercial starring the dude.
Sure.
This is something that I brought up in the last episode I recorded. So this is a trend now of usually Super Bowl commercials, but commercials being sequels to old movies.
Well, and I don't think it was a great representation of the dudes, like being like Stella Artois.
So
if anything, that's more like True Grit Jeff Bridges.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the dude. I do appreciate the concept of his drink's to White Russian, but he's getting a beer. Her Carrie from Sex and the City, her drink is
wasn't there
Cosmo,
right.
but she's like, I like the concept of, okay, these famous characters, famous drinks, they're getting Stella instead. That's fine.
Right.
But I remember the commercial also had a run of people, like the wait staff falling and causing a domino effect, and then a fire bursts out. But like, it had too much going on. It was a big mess.
And I got to give you a hot take here.
Yeah,
you ready for it? Stella's terrible. Can't stand Stella. Oh, I hate it.
I hear you. I don't think the dude's taste in beer is top tier.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
his oat sodas.
Yes, I understand that. But Stella Artois, like, people think that's a great fucking beer. No. Get off it. Please.
That is the only beer I can think of with a snobby commercial representation where they're doing the little knife across the foam and All right. So rolling towards the pitches, finally. We start with the questions. Should this movie, The Big Lebowski, have a sequel?
I will say no, simply because because of what we talked about earlier. I think it's an absolutely perfect film, and I think that adding or trying to do anything to it is just, it's too dangerous to disrupt the perfection of the original. So I would say no, and I will say that I don't think that really, when you look at the film, like, no one really changes in this movie.
No
one really develops or has some epiphany or whatever, which, you can't really do much with. There's not a lot to take into a new direction as a sequel if everyone stays exactly the same.
Right.
So, I have to also say no. This movie, as we've mentioned several times, is very, very special. And I think there's something to be said about, I don't know, I think it's magical, right? And I honestly don't think you could capture that same magic, just like with any sequel, really. I don't think you really capture that thing, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think they could, I don't think they could do that again.
It's an interesting point you bring up, Tony, because I agree. I think that what I've come to learn, or maybe I already knew it, but let's put a finer point on it doing all these podcasts, is that, like, the best thing a sequel can do is something new without tarnishing what's already been done. Because, like, if you don't do something, if you just repeat it, it's a wash. If you get too far away from it, you feel abandoned as an audience member. So it's like, it's hard to put a point on what works so well about, like, a Terminator 2 versus a Terminator 1, where it's like,
where you get into the Terminator 2s, the Aliens, the Dark Knight, all these things. Some character has learned something, changed something, evolved in some way, and they're somehow different in the sequel. So whether it's a role reversal, that to me is what makes a compelling sequel, where you're like, okay, well, like this, like Terminator is a perfect example. Like Sarah Connor is the victim in the first one, and Arnold's the bad
hero.
guy. And in T2, they flip the script, and she's this hardened criminal who's has this badass sense of vengeance, and he's there to help and help them survive, or whatever it is.
And that specific example is interesting because they did it once very successfully.
Yeah.
And then they tried it 5 more times. It's like, no, you can't just keep flipping the script. Like, there's only so many. Okay, so then my answer to the should it have a sequel question is, of course, truthfully, honestly, I have to say no. Especially because I've said no so many other times just for the sake of, like, this is a perfect piece of art. Let it be so. And the Coen brothers say absolutely not, and they're geniuses, and they made this, so please leave it alone. However, this one was a tougher answer to come to for me, just because, as we've discussed, they go so deep in with these characters. And like you said, they don't change. But what I would say is unique about this movie versus so many other movies is how well you know these characters, which is why it's a movie you can watch a million times, find something new, and just, slurp it up so happily. And I feel like because I've seen it so many times, I desperately want to be back in that world. I want the dude and Walter around me.
Yeah.
Not in real life, it would be hard to have Walter as a friend, but
we'll just settle for Stella Artois commercials.
Yeah.
50 years.
I'll take it over the Jesus rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the next question, if you're going to do it, sequel or prequel, what's the sweet spot?
I struggled with this because I ended up going sequel, but I think a prequel.
Interesting, because you asked about prequels. I was expecting prequel.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Yeah.
But I couldn't just flesh it out enough. But I think an interesting prequel, Walter, right after Vietnam.
Ooh.
Right? And he comes back to LA. Maybe he's bowling in Vietnam. Right? And that's where he finds his love of bowling. And just him getting to the point where he meets the dude.
The first thing that sprung up that I thought I would be interested in is Walter and his wife, Cynthia.
Right.
Because that's such a thing.
Yeah.
So that would be a fun thing to explore.
There's so much to mine there. Him as a husband, because she got a new husband, right? Or new.
Yeah, right. And I want to know who the casting is on that guy. Right. Like, who's the guy that stole her away? It's interesting because it's like I deal with this in my pitch a little bit, but it's like when you consider what Walter has, I guess because of the van that he has a security business.
Right.
Or used to.
Yeah. Like outside of that, for being because it's a pretty decrepit fan.
Right.
Yeah. But he's such it's hard to say because it's like I want to say he's a confident character because he's so ready to blow up at anyone for challenging him on anything. But I think that really means more of a lack of confidence. I was
going to say, I feel like he's very insecure.
Yes. He's lost his wife already.
Yeah.
We know that, and he's obsessed with her. So it's like, it is an interesting dichotomy of this character who is ready to destroy anyone or anything that gets in his way. But it's clearly all coming from a place of being sad and
and I think that's him bringing up Vietnam constantly.
Yeah.
He's showing you his worth, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's a question of throughout the movie, you could be like, well, why does the dude hang out with him? He fucks up everything in such a huge way, but you get it because it's like what he says about Donnie. He's one of us.
Yeah.
They're on a wavelength.
What if we did the Big Lebowski? I don't know if it's shot for shot, but it's all from Donnie's perspective. So the beginning of each scene will be the end of a scene when he was in a bowling alley. So the story goes to follow the dude.
Get his
Walter,
full story.
but we follow him when he leaves the bowling alley. What is he doing?
It's interesting. I had a similar thought with The Stranger, the Sam Elliott character.
Yes,
because he's. Based on what he says, I know the reason he was put into the movie was to be the narration that you would find in a noir, because you're not going to get a narration from the dude.
Right.
But he's in LA and that he wants to watch the bowling. He'd never missed the semis. So I want to know what the fuck else that guy's doing.
What he's doing.
Yeah.
He's drinking sarsaparilla.
My question is what the stranger's role, what is it? Is he is that a real guy? Obviously he's real because he interacts with the dude and we know that that's a concrete interaction. However, there's something ethereal about his existence that is, and he's a narrator. So he's obviously omnipresent in a certain way that is also implies reality.
Right. He talks to the camera.
Right.
But he also interacts with the bartender, which is because I know a popular theory is Donnie a figment of Walter's imagination? We know he's not as true fans because there's multiple interactions with the dude.
Where you going, dude? Home, Donnie.
Yeah.
Phone's ringing, dude. I know, Donnie.
Thank you, Donnie. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says my rug to him a couple times. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
This is that kind of movie. And there aren't any other movies like this where you know exactly, if you love it, you've watched it enough times to know every single line that the dude says to Donnie, because that's how important that is.
Right. I think there's something to the dynamics of everybody in this film are people that would never normally interact with one another. You couldn't pick two more opposing forces. This back hippie, peace-loving, Seattle 7 dude with a Vietnam veteran who did exactly the thing that you were protesting against. Like, in what world are they this?
They're best friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the brilliance of it in all those things. And the fact that, like, you have the Big Lebowski with Bunny, who's clearly there's no world in which they exist in a coherent way. You know what I mean? You have Maude and Lebowski, those two worlds collide. Yeah. There's all these scenarios where, like, every single thing is like, oh, there's this person from this world and this person from this world. Like, how is it ever a thing? And somehow they make it work, which is, again, you should never have a sequel, because there's no way you're going to capture lightning in a bottle that well, that long again.
And it seems crucial to Walter that he be accepted by the dude, despite having completely opposite reactions to things. Yeah. It's
just his reaction. His reaction alone, the line of, like, doesn't anyone give a shit about the rules?
Yeah. Yeah.
The most indicative, like, I feel that on a visceral human level, because I'm a dude that's like, I've been playing by the rules my whole life, and all fucking people keep getting ahead, not playing by the rules, and it's infuriating. So I completely understand how someone is going to get to a point. Like, that's got nothing to do with Vietnam. That's got nothing to do with being a vet. That's him being a person that is like, I'm doing the best that I can, and people keep fucking me over, and I am livid as a result of that. You know what I mean? Which I think is fantastic human, study.
Human nature. Yeah.
He pulls the gun at the game.
Yeah.
No, he's 20 minutes late. So he's bowling his first frame. Okay. So how long does a game of bowling take? You guys are on a bowling league. You know this.
I mean,
average game.
I would say an hour.
An hour. Fine. And that's bowling at a decent pace. These guys chit chat, they sit around, they yell at each other, they take lots of breaks. So he pulls out the gun, the dude says, put the piece away, they're calling the cops. Then in theory, they have an entire bowling game, and then they get in the car and the cops show up. So that's the only thing I could find that was like, what's up with these cops? But
I get what it's Los Angeles, again, maybe showing the fact that
LA cops, man, they don't give a fuck.
They got better things to do.
That's
Was anybody shot? Oh, well, we can.
No, we'll be there in an hour and a half. Let them finish their frame.
Does anybody want to go first with their pitch?
I can go first.
Okay.
I can go first.
Are you ready to be fucked, man?
Jeff Lebowski is just trying to bowl, man. And that seems to be all he's doing until his 16-year-old daughter shows up at his doorstep, asking him to solve the murder of her late mother, Maude. Police have closed the case without any leads. But Minnie Lebowski, she has an idea of who she thinks it might be, and she enlists the dude and his longtime companion, Walter Subcheck, John Goodman. Thank
you for the clarification.
I looked at old DVDs and they all say the actor's name.
I appreciate it. I was gonna say when you started, I was like DVD cover. There it is.
I know. It's John Goodman to suss out the killer, as long as it's not on Shomer Shabbos, of course.
Nice. Oh, do you have a title?
Then, I don't have a title, but I've got some taglines.
Hit it.
Ooh.
The dude rolls on.
That's a good title.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
that is a good title.
Okay, tagline.
Yeah.
There you go, baby. And you know what's interesting is I when I wrote the name Minnie Lebowski, I never even thought
I like that.
Big Lebowski, Little Lebowski. I was just thinking
like
Maud,
that.
Minnie.
I like it.
Interesting.
Fits
That was
perfectly.
that was it. Because I think like it would just be interesting to see him as a father, and I feel like she's like showing up to the bowling alley. He wants nothing to do with her, you know. Like that's the first half of the movie, and then they get into some weird shit.
I would see the fuck out of that movie. Day one, minute one, I'd be there.
It'd be fun, right?
Because I definitely, if you don't mind, Travis, you mind finding us out?
No.
I'll go next. Because when it came to the issue of the little Lebowski that the stranger refers to, I feel like it's there.
It's hard to avoid.
Yeah. However, like what normally is the arc of something like that is like, oh, he's a father that doesn't care. He'll care by the end of the movie. And that's a tough thing to say I want to see the dude do. It's not like he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Right.
I do expect him to be decent about it, but at the same time, it's like he's not going to pursue it. So I like that she comes to him.
There's got to be money involved. I feel like
Yes.
she's probably loaded. I'm sure.
When it could be a scenario where it's like less about them connecting and more about her realizing how little she can count on him for anything, or, or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to break up these pitches with fun facts.
Okay.
Perfect.
And I'll keep them quick. So initially, Alan Klein wanted $150,000 for the use of Dead Flowers by the Rolling Stones. I don't know who Alan Klein is.
Yeah,
I was about to say, who the fuck is Alan Klein?
This is a person who wanted $150,000. But
I wonder why he didn't get it. Nobody knows him.
But he so adored the scene where the dude talks about hating the Eagles that he waived the licensing fee.
Awesome.
Connected to that, one of the Eagles, Glenn Frey, was so dismayed about the dude's comment that he angrily confronted Jeff Bridges at a party.
Oh.
He seemed like an angry guy. If you watch that 5-hour documentary on the Eagles on Netflix, he's gone.
It's like if
California, I fucking hate that song.
Oh yeah, no. You got to take it to the limit, baby. Take it to the limit.
The Spanish cover,
the Hispanic, whatever that cover is. I think that's. Fantastic.
Oh, did you notice this? Not to go back to the Jesus Rolls, but real quick, the end song was "My Way" by Frank Sinatra. The Spanish cover. Yeah,
which, if I cared about the movie,
very good.
Maybe
choice.
I would have liked it because, like, I like the concept. It is their way. They're doing their thing their way. Yeah.
Okay, Paul, give us your pitch, maybe.
Smoking, my friend. You're entering a world of pain.
Mine takes place. Mine's modern, but given that the first one came out in 98 and took place in 90, mine takes place in April 2013. So the historical backdrop is the Boston Marathon bombing.
Oh boy.
Oh.
I mean, not that factors in. It's just much like the Saddam of it all.
Yes.
It's in the background. So we start, and I'm gonna tell you right now, this is a Walter story. You're gonna get scenes of just the dude alone, sans Walter, but you're also gonna get Walter sans dude. We see some of Walter's home life. It's a tribute to his regrets and the lack of respect he gets. You feel sorry for him.
Is he back or is he?
No, he's alone.
All right.
He's not living on our couch.
He's hard to love. I'm sorry. I mean, he might still be doing stuff for her.
Sure.
And maybe we see some of that. Yeah. We also see the state of the bowling team in league play. Their third member is bringing the whole team down.
Oh.
It's Marty, the dude's landlord.
Oh.
Keeping him on the team is the dude's new way of not paying rent. He's technically nice to him, but it's driving Walter bananas.
Way to go, Paul. That's solid.
When Donnie's bastard son, Theodore Jr., or TJ,
Karabatsa, played by, although he has a different last name, and we'll get to why, but he's played by Bill Skarsgård. So Pennywise. Great casting. He comes to LA looking to learn about his late father's legacy. Okay.
Walter becomes overly eager to bring him into the fold, especially once he has displayed that he shares his father's bowling aptitude.
He's throwing stones.
He's throwing rocks, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, baby.
The dude is a little more skeptical, noticing that TJ's tendencies seem a little more violent and vengeful than that of his old man.
Yeah.
In short, he seems damaged. Walter and the dude take TJ on a tour de Donnie, but when the young man seems disappointed by what he's shown, Walter takes it upon himself to start lying about who Donnie was and bolstering his reputation to be a big player about town who was respected and even feared by everyone.
Wow.
As a result, the dude and Walter become unwitting accomplices to TJ's tour of revenge against those he deems to be his father's enemies. And Walter ultimately goes on the run with him when he is seen by an eyewitness. Where I started this was like, I didn't want to go noir. I thought revenge flick, maybe framed as sort of like spaghetti Western almost, because we know Walter loves branded.
Yeah.
Right.
Thus begins a raucous journey to save TJ's soul from Walter's perspective, keep everyone out of jail, and if luck is on their side, maybe finally win the league bowling championship. Featuring Marissa Tomei as TJ's mother.
That's a great casting call, Paul.
Thank you.
In the money, she fits like a glove.
Yeah. Who is one of many to come around looking for her son, as well as the dude's own confrontation with his now 15-year-old daughter, who I kind of want to, personally, I started to try to make it a plot point, but I almost want to like save it for the end because like all this Donnie Jr. stuff is getting to the dude. Maybe I'm thinking he has a dream sequence where he confronts it, like the idea that he is not part of what he thinks is his son's life. And then it turns out it's a daughter. But the ultimate reveal when he meets the daughter is that she's always known who he is and has no use for him. Like Maud's brought her up as like, your father's a deadbeat. Yeah. In the end, after the truth comes out about who Donnie was and how he died, TJ shoots Walter, now blaming him for what happened.
Damn.
TJ is caught and arrested, and Walter survives. Later, our heroes go to visit TJ in prison, and Walter picks up right where he left off in playing surrogate father, forgiving the confused young man, stating that he's lost track of how many times he's been shot by a friend, and assuring him, "You're one of us." This is the big Karabatsas.
Oh, fantastic!
I like where you went there, Paul.
I love it. I would see. I would see that film.
All right.
A lot of strands to keep in my head, man. You know, a lot of strands in old Duder's head.
To me, it seemed like the only opportunity for sequel potential is through a child, through the Little Lebowski.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The dude has a daughter. The daughter is a lot.
We all went daughter. Isn't that interesting?
Well, I know. Which I just thought the same thing.
I think a daughter is way more compelling. A son,
another dude, a young dude.
Yeah.
And there's something about a female character,
and not doing it as well as Jeff Bridges.
It just worked better thematically. It's Maud's daughter, but she ends up being way more like the dude than she does Maud. So there's a little bit of a, she's living with Maud. Maud's this like pretentious, art-loving, blah, blah, blah. I think the girl somehow gets a little bit wrapped up in the Jackie Treehorn world.
Ooh.
Whether she's an actual actress or not, she's involved in these productions. She's on set. She's seeing what's going on. And so Maud comes wise to this, and she's pissed. Maud is not having it. This is not her this vibe, man. And so she reaches out to the dude, and she says, "Jeffrey, you have to deal with your daughter." So the dude is like, "All right, man, I'm going to go." And then he gets a scene with the daughter. They sort of have this backroom dealing where they're talking about things, and he's trying to convince her to come back home and chill out and be cool and whatever. Meanwhile, they witness a murder at the tree estate. Something goes, either Jackie caps someone or one of the other cats in the scene
Oh yeah, we know there's shady dealings there.
Exactly.
For sure. Violence. Yeah.
We know it's not good.
Yeah.
So they witness this, and it's one of those scenes where it's like, oh, get her. They see her see this situation happen.
Yeah.
So it's a get her situation. They're on now. The Lebowski and his daughter are on the run. So in the process, old Duder is in a real bad way. And so what does he do? He called his old pal, the Vietnam Met, Walter,
Oh yeah.
to come in, because that's, to me, is one of my favorite parts of The Big Lebowski, is when you finally get to see Walter embrace this anger that he has with the nihilists. And he throws the bowling ball and he bites the fucker's ears off and all this. He lives for that. You know, he's just waiting for that moment where he has that. And so to me, this is the moment that I'm so stoked for. So they're on the run. The Lebowski's hurt. And I can just picture the phone call, be like, man, I need your help. It's fucking, the shit is hitting the fan, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And the final crescendo takes place in a bowling alley, which I also think is super dope.
Perfect.
The Walter's there, and it's like Walter in his full getup, shotguns, fucking bullets across the chest, that whole shit. He's there. He's there to help them all get through whatever the case may be. You know, we get through this moment, and so yeah, I haven't figured out the ending. I don't know how it goes. I don't know if it's good or positive or bad or whatever. But that is my thought.
Okay, do you have a title?
It is The Dude Abides Again.
Okay.
Ooh, I love that.
Again, but the dude abides again.
I love that.
That's all I got.
My only note, and it's minor, and I think it fits right in.
Yeah.
Is just so we get more Walter in the movie.
Yes.
There's some stuff early on with Walter wanting to help, offering his help.
Absolutely.
The dude being a little bit like, no, this is my daughter. I don't want you fucking it up.
Yeah.
And then it
Donnie, man, I don't need your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it gets to the point that he's like, I need Walter. Okay. So way the voting works is everybody gets to vote for one that is not their own.
Okay.
I gotta go. The Dude Abides Again. There'd be something interesting to see these two characters solve this crime, and then, like, what if the dude's daughter is more what did they say to describe the dude for his clothing, Paul?
Terminally relaxed.
Yeah, what if she's more terminally relaxed than the dude himself? You know, and
to the point that it's too much for him.
For him, exactly.
Like,
so he begins
cover
to,
up. Yeah,
right.
And when it's your daughter, there's something visceral that makes you have more of an opinion and more committed to what their decisions are, that I think is essential to any sort of potential sequel. I think my vote would be, because I can't vote for my own, I would go the Walter focused one, just because I think he's such a dynamic character that I think there's a lot there that you can unpack.
Okay, nice. My vote also goes to The Dude Abides Again. So that's our winner.
Yeah! Oh, fucking A, man. I got a rash, man. Fucking A.
You felt it. We felt it. The world.
Now you gotta write the treatment.
Yeah. Just call Jeff,
come on, baby.
Joel, Ethan, John. Yeah.
So earlier we talked about unsung heroes, but there's one that I have to talk about.
Hit it, Ball Jr. Unsung heroes.
Knox Harrington, my absolute favorite. Like, that 3 lines between him and the dude, to me, I could watch the whole movie and turn the rest of it off, and that would be literally watch it.
So good.
Yeah.
I don't even.
I feel like we worked with someone who could have friends like that.
Charlie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just makes it so much better.
He's a perfect, because, okay, the dude has Walter and Donnie. That's his world. He's a perfect mod world character.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't need anything more than knowing he's a respected filmmaker or whatever. My unsung hero for the first one, because like I said, the small characters are just as big as anyone else.
Yes.
So it's hard to find someone that, like, for as much respect and love, deep love. Lebowski, there's a Lebowski fest.
Right.
You know, the people that love this movie know every single inch of it. So there's no one that's going to go undetected. So the closest I could find, the one I was very excited to find that I hadn't noticed before this, is when Walter is yelling in the coffee shop. There is a guy over his shoulder who gives him a sour face when he's doing I'm finishing my coffee.
Right.
Go back, check it out. He's worth a look.
The woman who answers the door at Larry Seller's house is also
PETA or what's her name?
Yeah, PETA.
No, he has health problems.
One of my favorite lines in the fucking movie. Like,
does he still write? God, that's so funny.
He's in a fucking iron lung.
He's in an iron lung.
I have one for the Jesus rolls. Maybe he's more of an unsung villain.
Slap it, Paul Jr. Unsung villain.
You got the Christopher Walken scene. Christopher Walken does the we don't forget, you did the bowling league, blah, blah, blah. He does that little setup for Jesus. And then the guard behind the Jesus says, "We don't forget." Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you clocked this. That's as close as I feel like the movie came to doing a Lebowski moment.
Yeah.
And they botched
a repeat.
They bungled it. It sucked. Like, it didn't add anything at all. But I only noted it as okay, that was an effort there, but they don't know what they're fucking doing.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was just, there were no rails to get back on. On the next follow-up showdown, we will instead be presenting a fourth chapter to the Back to the Future trilogy. Please welcome Robert Doyle, Adam Grun, and Lauren Getz.
For me, I really kind of wanted to redeem the second one
With a twofold goal.